I'm Michelle, coming back at you with another video. I wanted to make this video because all the other videos specifically deal with the year's worth of curriculum, and there's so much that goes into one of those years. But one thing that Carrie did, the author of the Heart of Dakota curriculum, is that she created a writing and kind of just language arts program that goes along with it, and it's called Drawn into the Heart of Reading. And I will just say that as a person who can create things, I was really impressed with this because I thought this has saved me so much time. If I was creating all this by myself, it would have taken hours and hours and hours of time that, as a busy mom of 4 kids, I don't really have time to do. So this has really saved me a lot of time. The best part about this is when you purchase this one book, this covers levels 2 through 8. So you can reuse it from year to year, and you can use it with multiple levels. So I like that in itself is a time saver. It's a money saver. You buy just one teacher's manual, and it lasts you all the way through level 8. So this will start when your child is in Bigger Hearts for His Glory, depending on your kid's reading level. For my son, who was in 2nd grade this year, he was ready. He was reading books on his own very well, and he was able to retell very well and answer specific questions about it. So he was ready to jump into it. And the readers at the level 2 are at a level that they can understand and do, versus as they get up more, they're going to be reading more pages. So you'll know if your child is ready if they love reading independently and if they can do some assignments on their own without feeling too stressed out. So usually what I would do is, this year's the first year I had 2 kids doing it, and so I would wait until my younger kids were kind of having a quiet time, and I would pull the 2 together at the table, and I would have this book with me. So this was my resource, and prior to the class, I would have chosen the first genre that we would go through. One nice thing is that you will be having a chance to look through different genres each year. So you can see that there is biography, adventure, historical fiction, fantasy, mystery, folktale, nonfiction, humor, realistic fiction, and all of those are genres that I feel like every kid is going to enjoy. Now, so what will happen is you will choose the genre. So as the teacher, you will then, on your own, go to that section. So let me get to what was a fun section. Let's do adventure. That was a fun one. So as the teacher, your first step is to do this on your own before class starts. So you're going to want to find the section in the teacher manual with adventure, and then just make sure you yourself understand what adventure is. She's got this page to help walk through what adventure novels are, different, and then there's always one story element emphasis that will happen during that entire unit. And you'll find that even in some of the other curriculums when you're doing the story times, they'll also be going through those same story elements. So sometimes will actually blend with what you're already doing in class anyway. So this emphasis is on the problem or conflict. So that means throughout the entire weeks that you'll be, I think it's a grand total of 20 days that you will be doing this. You'll be looking at problem and conflicts. Then also you'll be looking at a godly character trait. So in this unit, you're looking at fear of the Lord. So anytime you get to a character discussion, that's what your main focus is going to be. And often you'll be looking at biblical characters and comparing them to ones in the book. So that's kind of your teacher prep. And the first day that you sit down with your kids and decide, okay, we are doing Drawn into the Heart of Reading, you will have prepared a genre kickoff. And I love this. So before the first day, I look through, there are like, on this one, there's 10 ideas. So you pick one that you go, my kids would love this. Or maybe you are a really busy mom and you're like, I'm going to pick the easiest one in here. Maybe you have a lot of time, or you have just one child and you're like, I just want to get the biggest, best, most amazing experience. You'll find those ideas in here. So you pick your idea, you prepare that idea, and when you sit down to do Drawn to the Heart of Reading the first day, you're just immersing them into that genre. So you're going to go on an adventure with them. Let me give you an example. One of them says, play a board game that involves action, suspense, and risk. One of them says, Create a grab bag of various objects. The students reach in and grab 3 objects and tell a short adventure story using those 3 objects. So this is kind of like the way to whet their appetite and get them excited about this genre. And that's just day 1. You'll talk about it just a little bit, but then you're just doing that. Then the second day when you come to class or whatever you're doing for that one, then as the teacher, you are starting in on the adventure day 1. Sometimes they're going to be in all levels together. That means they will be sitting there together with you and you can't introduce to the entire group. So on those days, usually again, there's like day 1s, and some of the questions are designed for the whole group, or you can pinpoint to each of your kids specific questions. Usually on the day 1s is when you're handing the books to them and you're saying, these are the books that we're going to be looking at. Sometimes they may have one book for the entire. Oh, sorry, let me back up. So in a Drawn into the Heart of Reading unit, it's about 20 days. 15 of those days are going to be the actual reading and learning about that genre. So you have 15 days to read the book or sometimes 2 books. Then the last 5 days are going to be projects. So they're going to be introduced to a project of their choosing, maybe they're choosing, and then they will have 5 days to work on it and present their projects. So that's kind of how the 20 days are divided up. Now to figure out what are you going to read for those 15 days, they will send you a packet like this. And sorry about all my scribbling everywhere, but depending on the level, some levels will have a boy packet or a girl packet. Sometimes it's just everything all together. But so for example, this year I was with my 2nd grader in these ones. And it'll tell you, so like for biography, we just read a book about Amelia Earhart, and that took us 15 days. It'll also tell you the reading level on there. And let's say you look at that book and you're like, oh my gosh, we've already read that. Or I know my child is not going to enjoy that book. They will also, I don't think it's in this one, but they will also give you some optional ones. So if you're kind of like, I just don't really know what to do, they will create another list full of ones that could fit into those genres. And you're the mom, you're the dad, you decide what you want your child to read. So if you, again, don't agree with the book, or you're like, I like this book, but I think this one would be so much better, then go for it. There's freedom. That's what I love about Heart of Dakota. There's a lot of freedom and choices in this. Now, sometimes you'll get a book or a genre, so like an adventure, which we were just using, this has 2 books. Now, my child actually thought these were super easy to read, but he liked them. They were stories about animals. They were interesting, and he went from there. So it'll tell you how to divide it up. So it'll say, 10 days with this, and then 5 days with this. And so it'll tell you those days, but you're the one who gets to pick the actual page numbers. And so that is a little bit of work you'll have to do ahead of time. One resource that you will have to purchase is the student notebook. So let me get the level 2 one. I have 2. So I have a level 2 and 3, and I have a level 4 and 5. What I love is you can use this for 2 years. So you buy one and you can use it for 2 years. Now, one thing that is cool is, again, has the same genres that the other book has, and you can decide how you want to use this with your children. So for me, I sometimes like to make photocopies of certain ones because then I can cross it out if they mess up. They don't feel so bad. But basically, the biggest thing that they need to have is this. So if you're doing adventure, you are going to want to also fill this out for each child. So at the top, you write their name, the genre of the book, and then whatever their thing is. Sometimes they might be reading 3 books, 5 days each. Sometimes it's 1 book for 15 days. So then what you go through is you go through and you write down what actual page numbers they're going to read. So that first day that you hand them that book, you're going to have this with that to say, okay, this is your book or your books, and this is how long you have. These are the page numbers you read. This is so good. I have a child who will get overwhelmed if I just say you have this giant book to read. But if I can say to him, oh, you only have page 5 to 15 or 5 to 10, that will make them feel less overwhelmed when they can see that visual. Also gives them something to cross out, like, yes, I did this. So that first day, they are going to, from the information you've already pulled, you already know what books are coming, so you can cross them off. Like, I have to cross them off myself to be like, okay, which ones have we done? because you're going at 20 days apiece, at some of the levels, you may not actually get through all the genres. So let's pretend you have a genre you're like, oh, I hate this genre. Skip it until the end. Pick any order you want to. There is no rule that says you have to go in a certain order. So, for example, this year, I was able to get through everything except for folktales. So, for folktales, I ended up just turning these into like a nighttime storybook that we would read once the school year was over. So we just read them at night. We still talked about them, but it wasn't like an official thing. So anyways, that's just to kind of give you a heads up as to say that you may not get through all of the genres. So pick your favorites and start with those first, and then go throughout the year. As you get into the higher levels, when you only have 4 days of instruction, I turn mine into 5 days, but there's only going to be drawn into the Heart of Reading maybe 2 or 3 of the days of instruction. So again, you choose for you. My older son, he likes the books. He loves the books for Drawn into the Heart of Reading. He doesn't always like to do the written work, so sometimes I'll have to help him with that. But I made the conscious choice to say, you know, two of my sons are doing this together, so I'm going to make him do every day. So my older son is doing every day, even though in the manual it's only 3 days out of the 4. So again, freedom. This is the word I want you to hear, freedom. So for my older and my younger, I have them sit down at the table. They get their assignment for that day, and I have them read. While they are reading, I am usually helping my 2 younger kids, trying to make sure they're organized and ready for their quiet times, and just trying to give them a little bit of attention to, or reading them a book. Then I come back, and they are done with their readings, and then this is when we can get into the meat of it. So what'll happen is on that day, after the reading, whatever day it happens to be, it'll be broken down into levels sometimes. So I will take my 2nd grader and I'll say, okay, this is what we're going. So maybe all they had to do that day was to read and then answer some questions. Maybe they had to read you a couple pages. So maybe they've already read through once, and then you say, hey, can you give me 1 page? Read me one of those pages, and then they read it to you. And then you just ask them 3 or 4 questions, so just to make sure they're understanding the basic of it. I will warn you, if you have a good reader, some of these books they're not going to want to stop. And so it'll be hard to push them to say, oh, we're only going to do this small chunk. But it's good practice in self-control also. Now my level 4 and 5, so I had a level 4 this year. The level 4s are going to be a little bit more intense in terms of the written work. Again, my 2nd grader is still kind of getting used to writing, so often he didn't have to do as much, but my 4th grader did. So that day I would then take him at the level 4 or 5, and I would do that assignment with him. Often the level 4 or 5 is going to be doing an assignment within this book. So you will need to have either this paper copied for them or have this in front of them. So after they read, then they will have to fill out the worksheet, and you can go over it with them. If you have a child who does not like to write, or this is an area where it's conflict and fighting, it's not worth fighting over your child to make them write. So do the best you can, or have them, like if there's 5 bubbles, say, okay, you do 3 and I'll do 2. Work together. But what I would do then is like, so for example, on this adventure day, day 2, my 2nd grader had no written work, so he would only have talking. But my 4th grader, I would sit a little bit longer and I would walk through conflict response with them. But on day 3, I noticed that, oh, now my 2nd grader has something. Now this, as you can see, is a lot of writing, but it's really important. They're looking at the setting, the title, the characters, the moods, the problems, and also making predictions of what's going to happen. So this is something where my 2nd grader may have had no exposure to. They might be like, what are you talking about, predictions? So this is something I would want to make sure that I really sit down with my 2nd grader and walk through and make sure they understand it before I let them go. And then, whereas my 4th grader has now done this for 3 years, and so it's a little, he gets the general concepts and can do it. So he might have the same thing, but in a little bit, but they're looking at, oh, the reactions to the problems and thinking about it and internalizing it to themselves. So it's important to have the student manual for both, or whatever level you're at. There is a 3rd one, I'm just not there yet, so that's what I would have. So they will send you this so that you can keep track of your books, and then you will have to order these, and you will have to order the manuals. So that's in terms of cost. Now, I mentioned how there's 15 days of reading and activities. I showed you some of those activities and some of the books. Oh, speaking of the books, we have loved every single book. I think there maybe have been a few where, like I had my son, my second grader, had a couple books where there were some girl main characters, and he was like, oh, but you know, that's just boy behavior sometimes. So as they get through, they're going to be doing a lot. Now, my fourth grader this year, he read for his, what is it called? He read for his the fantasy genre. He read half of Little Pilgrim's Progress and loved it. But he only had to read half this year. He's going to read the second half next year. So they're going to get into some really great, amazing books. If I have time at the end, I can walk through some of those with you. Another thing that you can choose to purchase, I did and I've loved it, is these. They look like something you would pick up at like a teacher bookstore, but they are different grade levels. And these are some projects. So I mentioned the last 5 days of this unit is going to be projects. So this has probably been my favorite part about this. So as you get to about day 15, what's going to happen is you are all of a sudden going to get some options. So as the teacher, you are going to need to look through the options on your own. So you are going to want to look through that on your own and think of your own children. Now, because I know I'm doing 2 years of homeschooling at each level, I think to myself, okay, there are 3 project options. The third option is a group project, which is not feasible for me because I do not have 2 kids at the same level. And so I don't want them trying to create a project together when they've read different books. So I've always skipped option 3. But if you have twins or multiples doing one level, option 3 might be an option for you. Option 1 is always related to a godly character trait. So for me, if it's the first year of their book, so if it's the level 2 or the level 4, what I've done is I've chosen to do option 2 for that one, because option 2 is using these project books. So option 2, it'll tell you what page number in these books to look, and then you can go through and, I think that's upside down, sorry. And then it'll go through. Now this is really fun. This reminded me of my own grade school experiences when you're making things. So in each one of these, there will be a little introduction. There will be specific instructions, step by step. Again, you can tailor them and make them look how you want. They'll have any resource pages you might need, and then they'll have a little self-assessment. I usually have Principal Dad likes to go and use this to kind of give them a grade. Now, one thing that's cool about this is that you can, like, I like to write numbers on there to say, like, okay, day 1, this is what I want you to do. Day 2, day 3, day 4, etc. So they kind of know what they're doing. So for me, again, I'm sorry, this is probably so much, but for level 2 and level 4, I like to do these because I think they're a lot of fun. It kind of gets them excited about it, and it's just something that they can really enjoy. And maybe you enjoy them so much too that you're like, I'm only gonna do these because my kids would love these. But maybe you're like, you know, I'm kind of struggling with this certain character in my child because they seem to just be having a hard time with their younger siblings or something. So what I do is when I'm in level 3 and level 5, this is when I focus on the godly character traits. So that's option number 1. Now option 1, again, they'll go through a whole bunch of things for the teacher so you can go, okay, this is what I'm looking for. And then it'll give you goals that you're trying to do, and the child will create their own goals. Often with the character quality, they're going to be doing something that's a little bit different. It might be less about the book and more about their own character that they're trying to put out there. So it does relate to the book a little bit, but I feel like it's a little bit less emphasis on this is the title and this is the author and more information. So that's just kind of a little bit of information about the specifics of what they'll be doing. Again, a reminder that you are not going to get through all the genres, but that's an opportunity to say, okay, maybe we'll turn this last book into a book you can just read on your own and have fun. And my kids have really loved that because they love to read. And one thing I've noticed with Heart of Dakota is it just fosters their love of reading even more because they've read some amazing books. So you've made it this far. Let me just show you some of the books that you can choose from as well. So again, the level 2s, if I can put those over here, you're getting a really good quality of books, but again, they're going to be lower, I'm not lower levels, but they're just, the writing's going to be bigger, and they'll be able to read it pretty quickly. One comment I will make is on humor. Humor, every family I feel like has different levels of humor. So if you are a laugh out loud family and your humor is like you just want to belly laugh, then these are not going to be the funniest books in the world. They're still good and they're still informative, but I wouldn't necessarily classify them as hilarious. So if you need to change something, that's fine. In level 3, they're bumping up in levels. You can see they're going to move over to Tolliver's Secret. That's a great book. Sarah Plain and Tall, Matchlock Gun, Mystery of Pelican Cove. They did Treasure of Pelican Cove and the other one, so these are 2 great ones that they really like. And then Owls in the Family, that was a great book. So a lot of really, really great books. But again, reminding that you may not get through all of them in itself. And then you get to, this is all I've gotten to so far, so bear with me. But in level 4, you're pretty much only doing 1 book at a time because these are longer books, but my kids loved them. Black Stallion, Sign of the Beaver, Buffalo Bill, Dragons of the Deep, Tales from Dust. Oh, he loved these ones. Toothpaste Millionaire, great book. So again, lots of quality books, okay? I will be doing this one next year. I'll be doing this one next year. So these are all the books for level, oh, this is the girl. I'm sorry. This is the girl interest pack. I'm on the wrong thing. So girl interest pack. Once you get to level 4 or 5, you can choose if you want to do the boy interest pack or the girl interest pack. So the great option is that you can pick, and so your child will probably be happy with either one. Level 6 and 7 though, they go back to just picking one. A lot of times when there's just one, it's mainly because of the fact that they just want to get you some great options. And then they have back to 7 and 8. Level 7 and 8, they've got a boy and a girl interest pack. Again, you may get through these and go, oh my gosh, we've already read this, or oh, I don't like this one, I don't agree with whatever. You then can usually, I don't have it, but they will usually send a list of other options, or you can request that from them to say, you know, do you have a list that shows all the options I can use? And just they love to help. They love to help. One thing, if you haven't figured out from Heart of Dakota, is they have a wonderful support system, and the people when you call they love to talk to you on the phone, and they will help you through your options. So when you're ready, jump into Drawn into the Heart of Reading, because you will love getting that extra experience with your kids to really richly dive into some great books, but also it allows them a chance to build some independence in their creation of projects. They are writing, they're thinking, they're analyzing, they're comparing, they're contrasting, they're doing all kinds of different skills all within the course of the school year. So they will have a treasure's worth of language arts and grammar, and just again project ideas that and the other thing is you'll have an amazing amount like in a portfolio. So if you have to make a portfolio, they'll have some great projects you can put in a portfolio. I've had some videos and some cool looking projects that I've just taken tons of pictures on because they think it's just so fun. So if you're doing Drawn into the Heart of Reading, just get excited, because the books you're going to read, or the kids we're going to read, are going to be rich. You can read them too. You'll also enjoy them. But anyways, so have fun and jump into Drawn into the Heart of Reading.